Well, today it's all about AfroBeats.
Hey. 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 Hey.
Join us today as we learn why AfroBeats is sweeping America with our guests Lisa Yaro, Greg Johnson, and Abdul Karim Abdullah. Music Day, a verified hit.
AfroBeats is sweeping across America, and it is just a genre no matter what mood I'm personally in. It uplifts me, it just makes me feel good, and I listen to it all day, all night, okay? So I'm Monique Kelley, and this is Music Day, a podcast about trends and issues facing the Black music business. Unapologetic conversations that we hope will educate and inspire those listening. Like I said earlier, we're going to give you insights on Afrobeats genre that's gaining tremendous attention. We have assembled a few guests who are going to share their expertise and insights about the genre. We invite you to stick around and be sure to press that like button if you like what you're hearing. Be sure to subscribe in that bottom left-hand corner and make sure you share some of your comments as well. And make sure to subscribe again so you can be alerted about all of the Music Day news and episodes. So I'm going to introduce our guests today. First, we have Lisa Yaro, a Nigerian American singer and songwriter, actress, producer, and CEO and owner of record label Music Corner LLC. She has worked with a number of Grammy-nominated producers and artists and had many songs on Maya Smooth Jones that was nominated for a Best R&B Album Grammy. Wow. Lisa has enjoyed success as an independent Afrobeats artist with several commercial releases and tours in the U.S. and Lagos. She has executive produced films. Okay, Lisa. Okay, executive produced films, including the recently released Freedom's Path. Welcome, Lisa. Next,
Thank you for having me.
So glad to have you here. And another one of my favorite Afrobeats artists that I was jamming to earlier today doing my makeup. Next, we have Greg Johnson. He is a media marketing executive, arts advocate, event producers, president of the Arts Council for Long Beach, California, and host and producer of AfroPop radio podcast. He promotes travel and tourism to Africa, coordinating travel groups to the continent, and his mantra is to build bridges of music, arts, and culture between Africa and America. He also imports his own line of coffee from Cameroon. He is also a veteran of the Marine Corps. Welcome, Greg, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Glad to have you. I was telling you earlier that I can't wait to have some of your coffee. We're going to get into that soon. Get that little energy boost. First, let's just dive into it. The first question I have for people who are not familiar with the genre is, what is the difference between Afrobeats and Afrobeat?
Well, Afrobeat was essentially created by Fela Kuti, which was in the 1960s and 1970s. That is like a blend of Yoruba music with jazz. Now, Afrobeats is more of a collective of songs, I'd say like West African pop, and it's a genre umbrella of Afrobeat, just different genres of Afrobeats put together. So labels had an easier, accessible way of identifying it.
Okay. Now, you just mentioned Fela Kuti. And back in the 70s, his music was an influence on pop performers such as Brian Eno, David Byrne, and he collaborated with Roy Ayers. And the recent Afrobeats music has spawned collaborations between African artists and Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez, Brandy, and Beyonce. And that's over 40 years in between. What do you think is the reason for the recent exploding popularity around the globe? I'll start with you, Greg.
I think first off, it's all about our connectivity through the internet. we're able to hear the music and discover the music in a way that we haven't been able to hear before. Now it's global. And I think that's as we begin to explore through the digital world, we connect with Mother Africa and we hear these rhythms, and therefore you see these collaborations, on the American side. I really like the more pure, AfroBeats sound. The folks that are, I'm a big Burna Boy fan, Kid, Stone Boy, all the, we go on and on and on.
And Lisa, how about for you as an artist?
Burna Boy was a trailblazer with Afro beats being created in the sound and the genre, especially bringing that more familiarized in the UK. As for me as an artist, what was the question?
As an artist, in terms of the popularity exploding, what do you contribute that to?
I concur with what he said. I think it's heavily based on social media. It's a new ball game for the industry in itself, because the internet has really opened gateways and doors for independent artists to maneuver and find their tribe, find their listeners, as opposed to having to go through labels and doing the groundwork manually. Now you can get on the internet, sing your song. And I mean, as we see on TikTok, musicians are going viral every single time. Libyanka, she had a song called People. She was posting every day on her TikTok, and the song went viral. Chris Brown, all these different artists are sampling her songs, listening to her songs. Now she has people coming to her, wanting to feature with her. And it's just giving you, the social media aspect of it gives you a whole new platform to get your voice across. So
how did you go about building your audience when you first came into this genre and building an audience? What was the first thing that you did?
See, for me, starting in 2018, TikTok and, these platforms weren't really open and accepting to Afrobeats and, things of that nature, because they weren't very familiar with it. So being in the States, I would travel to Nigeria often and stay for like a month, 2 months at a time to make music, go back to market, promote music, go to Ghana, go to UK. And I kind of did the footwork, with my team out there, which I'm blessed to have. But now it makes it more accessible for me to market on these various platforms, as opposed to always having to feel pressured to go back and be on the ground soil. Now I do it regardless, because that's home for me. And in Africa, Nigeria, it's where it starts. You have to, it's like a rite of passage. You have to work your way out. But, with the social media platforms, it just gives you a little bit more mobility, should I say, to get your songs out there to different people in different parts of the world.
The beauty of social media really can really grow an audience at such a fast rate. And Greg, what have you found to be the greatest barrier to Afrobeats penetrating the American market?
Since I've been exposed to the music and not just Afrobeats, but contemporary African music in general. That's what we cover on our podcast. We go all across the continent, right? The whole thing is in impacting the U.S. marketplace was really kind of predicated on, their position in getting awards. I know that even speaking to artists, on the continent, they're happy to get the Grammy nomination or the BET Award nomination, but then they travel all this way and then it doesn't even get shown on mainstream TV. I know that a couple of years ago they changed that. And when I think it was Davido that won that award, when he won that award and they put it on the main telecast, that opened up that music format across the board. There were people who knew that I was into this type of music, and they were like, "Mr. J, man, I never heard of Davido. I never heard of Burna Boy. He got the BET Award. Oh, this music is dope." That's how it, began to catch a fire in the United States.
And do you find with Black radio, do you find them a welcoming, sympathetic outlet to the genre? Lisa, how about for you? What's your experience been with Black radio?
My experience has been very inviting, and I'm very fortunate because I feel as though we are all collectively coming together and expanding our knowledge on, our race, and being more open to traveling, being more open to listening to the different genres that we have, and vice versa. In Nigeria, hip hop, R&B, all of those genres are played, and I think it's a great experience to finally see that everything is being reciprocated. So I've had a great experience with it.
That's good.
I might want. I want to speak to that. I have a 30+ year broadcast career, and I know that when I first began to, it was through the radio station that I began to even discover, contemporary African music. I was taking my first trip to South Africa, and as I was preparing for that trip, I'm listening to radio stations on the continent in South Africa. I just want to see what's going on. I want to hear the commentary and all that, and I began to discover music and songs that were like, oh dang man, we need to know about this group at home. This is dope. I'm really catching on. And as I began to explore across the continent is when I began to discover, right, the West African, the Afrobeats, the high life, on and on and on. But I feel like presenting that to a radio programmer in those days, and that would be the mid 2000s, it wasn't really welcoming. I can tell you stories where people visited the radio station that were tremendous superstars on the continent, but the people in the station were like, okay, who are you now? And it's like, what do you know? They're like filling up stadiums in Africa. It's really, really interesting. Now when I listen, being outside now, and when I listen to the station, I hear a lot of Afro beats, and I'm like, okay, dang, I told y'all this is this is it. So I'm glad to see the progression that it has made thus far.
Right, I am too. And do you think that it's getting equal to the engagement we see globally for hip hop as the years are going? Do you find it's getting closer to that now, and that same popularity?
I think we have a ways to go.
Well, they have.
You do.
No, go ahead.
I don't even know if I want that, right? I mean, they have their own hip hop artist over there. Hip hop is a universal expression of art, right? And so you do have young people coming and they're expressing what they see in the hood, through rap music, through lyricism, spoken lyrics. But I really like the listen, the drum is everything. Okay, right. I love the rhythms of the various regions of contemporary African music. As an example, outside of Afrobeats, you have, like in Southern Africa now, is Amapiano, and this is becoming a very strong. It's sort of like house music. I mean, house music is their thing down in that region, but it's sort of like house music. But out of the years of the pandemic, because the kids are sheltering in place and using their available technology, they've created this whole new genre of music, which is taking, African radio by storm. All over the continent, you listen to contemporary radio. Yikes! Amapiano is becoming a thing. Afrobeats is becoming a thing. Burna Boy versus I'm trying to remember. I can't remember, but you have producers like Don Jazzy and that's coming out of Nigeria, right? But their songs, he does have hip hop driven artists, but but a lot of vocalists. It's got its own little flavor versus hip hop, right?
Yeah.
And what have you found to be an influential platform for the introduction of Afrobeats? We hear it in upscale venues, hotels, clubs, and lounges. What is the reality of all of that?
I think for me, the reality is the clubs. It's almost like an underground way of coming into those other establishments. The DJs, they're really a big key in a lot of new music being broken out and, people hearing a different sound, because attention span is very short for most people. If you're in the car, how often are people, in the car listening to something for 5 seconds, 10 seconds that they don't know, it's unfamiliar to them, they'll change the station. Whereas you're in a club, you're in a setting where you're there to listen to music. It has your attention. So oftentimes the DJs are the ones that, help to carry new sound into different spaces.
And we spoke on this briefly, but Greg, you talked a little bit about the Grammys and DeVito getting the award, but has the Black media in America given the artist and the music its fair share of visibility? Is it a fight for media coverage and inclusion in BET and AACP awards, et cetera? What is your view of that?
I think that we have a whole new consciousness in Black America, right? We must be about building a bridge of music, arts, and culture with Africa. And with that comes education. If you see now, in my age group, you look at the continental Africans who have come over, back in the college days, we saw them, but we created this chasm, right, of misunderstanding that exists. But now you have generations, they've achieved careers. Now they have roots now here in the United States. And then, layered on top of that is the internet. We now are discovering one another, and social conditions in the United States have dictated that we must pay attention to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora and what they're doing artistically, expressions of art, expression of literature, on and on and on. It's a global time now for us as American descendants of slaves. Now, has Black media embraced that? They still got some ways to go, and they need to cut it out with drawing this chasm, embrace our continental brothers and sisters, and we only will become a strong nation across the world accordingly. So there it is.
And Lisa, as a Nigerian American, how do you bridge the gap from your Nigerian roots to your American roots in your music, and also how you approach, promoting your music as a Nigerian American?
So my journey has been an interesting one, being born and partly raised in Nigeria, growing up in the States. It's always a sense of Nigerians, Africans weren't really that accepted back then, as they are embraced now, from personal experiences that I would encounter. Being a songwriter, writing pop, R&B here in the States, but loving and listening to AfroBeats, it was a way for me to express who I am, because although I'm Nigerian, I'm still American. I was raised here. I have so many experiences here, and being okay with knowing that I am who I am and I can create my own lane and not try to follow someone else's footsteps, because we don't have the same journey. And when you're true to yourself and true to your artistry, you're going to attract those who embrace it. And that's the key for me, is embracing my Afrobeats roots and embracing the R&B and the pop as a writer. That's what, I've written, and, working with other amazing writers just to get different perspectives. And, whenever I go back home, it's like an inspirational thing for me, because I gain so much insight and, knowledge on different things when I'm not there on the ground, that I'm like, oh, I can totally blend these two worlds together because it's something new. So I always try to strive for authenticity and being true to the art in that sense. So it's been a good journey so far. And funny enough, you mentioned Amapiano. My upcoming single is an Amapiano record.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah,
What's the name of your upcoming single?
Yeah. It's called Savage. So BET
Oh,
Jams
ooh.
has the world exclusive rights to it for the video. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that.
Oh,
So
that
the
is
single
great.
drops May 26th. Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be good. That's going to be really. And speaking of Savage and Fenty,
I'll make sure to send it to you privately.
Yes, please, because I'll be jamming it up from here. And how do you decide who you want to collaborate with? Do you pick another artist who understands Afrobeats and has an appreciation for Africa, Nigeria, or do you think about it more of what's going to make it pop? How do you decide who you collaborate with?
So that's a great question. When I first started in the industry, I think my mindset, which a lot of artists have that mindset of, I love my music. I want to get it to as many different platforms as possible. So let me go and, feature like someone that's very big and very known. And sometimes that's not the best route, because you're creating your path. So sometimes their audience isn't a fit for the path that you're creating for yourself. I think along the journey, I've learned that I have to be grounded and present myself first to the world individually before I can even think about features and things of that nature, because the focus is for them to know who Lisa Yaro is outside of a feature. And then, those come with relationships and bonding and, are we on the same page as far as, this is the sound, what's the message you're putting out? Because I'm very mindful on that as well. Music is a weapon and it's how you wield it. And I make sure I wield it in the right way, and I make sure that my music uplifts and not bring people down. So, but right now the EP, everything it's just Lisa Yaro. It's just everyone getting to know who Lisa Yaro is, and then outside of that, the features. I'm open to the features, but my first introduction to it, I had that mentality. I had to really sit back, be honest with myself and what my target was. And I said, I just want them to know who Lisa Yaro is.
Now you they kiss me better. No want another person, because you give me sweet. You never love me lesser. For me, matter you ready up personal. You be my John Travolta.
And they know Lisa. They know your name.
Well, I appreciate that.
And Greg, I want to talk a little bit about Fela on Broadway. It was a smash hit. It undoubtedly brought this music to the forefront with its producers like Jay-Z and Will Smith. Is there another event in the works to highlight AfroBeats that you're aware of in addition to the work that you're doing?
I mean, probably not on that level, always talking about trying to create transcontinental, experiences in this way. We've done for Africa Day a couple of years ago, we did an Afrobeat explosion featuring Najite, who was a student of Fela Kuti. We've been talking about doing other types of expositions with various, from coming out of Ghana, the Grammy-nominated Raki Dawuni. He's more Afro reggae pioneer, but certainly very well known in that region of the continent. Globally speaking, though, is how I've been looking at festivals and events like a Fela Kuti High Art, right? We're going back to Ghana for Panafest, the Pan-African Arts and Culture Festival. And there we'll probably see all different types of, contemporary African music as well as the traditional. So, man, I think we're at a point now where pioneering in that space is the opportunity, because it's all about, introducing the masses of Americans to this music, dispelling the myths about our brothers and sisters on the continent is like crazy. And then that once we dispel the myths, we begin to listen to the music, and we'll find that we have more in common, than not. Right. And then the drums and the music are just a whole other thing. It's just like, yikes. When you listen to, I bet you Lisa Yaro has some rhythms that are crazy.
That's great. And the timing of Abdul joining us as soon as we're talking about some of the upcoming festivals and events is perfect. So let me just do an introduction. How are you doing, Abdul? Welcome.
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
Great. So let me just, in case you don't know, I'm sure you do, Karim Abdullah is CEO of AfroFuture Fest and founder and CEO of Culture Management Group. AfroFuture is an annual festival held in Ghana and is dedicated to promoting and elevating Africa's talent, food, art, and fashion. They have brought over 65,000 global travelers to Ghana since its inception in 2017 and generated over $4 billion in tourism revenue. Abdul and the team were named Goodwill Ambassador of Tourism to Ghana to help promote the country's tourism globally. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology and biology, and a master's degree in public health. Whoa. Okay. Welcome, Abdul.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. It's so interesting. We were just talking about Fela on Broadway and how it was such a big hit. And the music festivals are proving to be a good way to extend the reach of the music. And you co-founded Afrochella, now AfroFuture. Afro Nation is being held in Miami in May, and Chance the Rapper and Vic Mensa just held their Black Star Line Festival last January. You mentioned in an interview early about how a failed event at Shiny Beach helped them to create the mega successful Afrochella. What lessons did you learn from that experience?
When we decided to throw Shining Beach, first of all, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Looking forward to share our story. When we started to try and throw an event at Shining Beach, to be honest, it was in the vein of us just throwing a party. We didn't really have a great understanding of what we were trying to do. And really all Shining Beach did was refine for us what we should be doing. Whereas the event itself wasn't so great, the thing that was great was some of the underground artists that we saw that performed. And that really inspired us saying, wow, the thing we should have been focusing on was just how to figure out how to bring talent to the world, how to explore opportunities to create opportunities for young talent like the ones that were performing on that stage at Shining Beach. And that gave us, some time to sit down, a few years to kind of think about our concept, build out what we wanted to do, connect more with people on the ground, refine our thoughts and theories and put it together. In 2017, we was able to come back with a very big success.
Wow. And Lisa, as an artist, what is the best part about performing at festivals? What do you love most about that aspect of it?
I think for me, it's engaging with the audience, engaging with the crowd. I just recently went on tour end of last year with Flavor, and I opened up for Ashake in Texas. So, oftentimes when you come out and they're not knowledgeable, if they're waiting to see that headline artist, they're like, who's this? And then coming out, and then when you're leaving the stage, when they see the energy and then they're listening to the music, like, okay, hold on, I can get into this. I love that connection that I have with them, because now they're in tune with what I'm doing. Now they're sharing a piece of my music, and now they're knowledgeable on who Lisa Yaro is, my sound, and I love to give a show. So I don't care if it's one person or 1,000 people, I'm gonna full on give the energy and, put it all out there, because at the end of the day, it's your dream, it's your life, and it's something you're pursuing. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I just make sure that it comes out in every single thing that I do.
I love that. And Abdul, when is the AfroFuture this year?
So AfroFuture is the same time every year. It's always going to be December 28th and 29th. So we've kept it at that date since the inception. It's always going to be that date. Doesn't matter what day of the week it is.
Okay. Kind of like Christmas. The date doesn't change, or your birthday.
December 28th. That's when the next one is.
That's smart, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say something right here?
Yeah, please, Greg, by all means.
What an honor, Brother Abdul, to meet you. I was at Afrochella this past
amazing.
December. And let me just tell y'all. So in my many travels to the continent, right, I decided last year, we decided that we would, what would it be like to spend Christmas in Ghana, right? And we had gone for the year before for this business delegation. But we said, what would it be like to spend Christmas in Ghana? So I'm researching our trip and everything. And I realized, looking on social media, that Ghana in December is a thing. Okay. And I didn't know this, right? Yeah. I'm like, oh, holy crap, man. I'm looking at all these people. So we took a apartment in Accra, and we actually lived in Ghana for a month and a half, all through December. And one of the touch points for me as a music vet is I had to go to Afrochella, right? Oh, and so I was at Afrochella, and I'm a little heated because y'all changed Burna Boy's date, but that's okay. But I just want to say it is such a privilege and honor to be on this podcast together with you, Brother Abdul,
Absolutely.
because I'm going to tell you all that it was incredible to see all of the people, the music lovers, and now at my age, I'm starting to say the young people come together from all over the diaspora. The vibe is just on a whole nother level of blackness. I had my little handy cam out there. I'm still editing the video up and everything, but just the cultural explosion and the molecular level that you have walking through this Afrochella experience is I mean, probably don't have a word in my vocabulary to share with you all, except to say Ghana in December, as they say over there, Dirty December.
That's
Come on over.
December.
Yeah, make sure that now it's Afrofuture. I don't agree with. I mean, I know why y'all had to change it. I should have left it at Afrochella because that was the flyest thing ever, right?
You can call it.
But
You can call it whatever you want to call it, Greg.
I mean, man, it is an incredible experience, and all the artists, the food, got to do Afrofuture.
Yeah,
Got to do
absolutely.
it.
I mean, I think for us, just to even address like the name change is really like no matter what we call it, it's still going to feel exactly what you're describing, right? A space for
Exactly.
Black people within the diaspora to congregate and for us to tell stories, share stories, for us to build each other. I think some of the things that we wanted to do is to kind of create that feeling you're describing, right? The formula. And for us, is really just kind of bringing the food, the music, the art, and the fashion together. And we knew that it was going to create an experience that wasn't going to be something forgettable for people, and that allows us to be able to dig into those stories a bit. And this year, I mean, in the past couple of years, we've kind of taken the music experience not just on the stage, but added a museum component on it, so people can learn. Not just a fashion component on the field where people come with amazing garbs, but also just kind of having a discussion about African fashion on the side. And I think that by creating that environment in Ghana in December, we're kind of creating an expo of sorts that allows us to kind of boost tourism, that allows us to be able to kind of educate people in the diaspora around the world about each other. What I'd love to say is really that we're pretty much the same. We just have different strategies of how we've arrived at our current consciousness, and if we're able to kind of like connect on that level where we can find commonality, the limits are limitless.
It's so interesting that you said that, Greg, because I have so many friends that have gone to Ghana in December. And when you go once, it is an annual thing, and it's a wonderful experience. And Abdul, it seems to me like you are just a pioneer at just creating these great experiences. Now, I saw on your IG that you have an event in the Ivory Coast in April that you're teasing. What is that event that's coming up in April?
Absolutely. I mean, so outside of just kind of connecting the diaspora, some of the work that we're trying to do is also connect the continent. As you can know, there are different parts of the continent. There's Francophone Africa, Anglophone Africa, Lusophone Africa, right? There's so many different speaking languages, depending on who colonized the country, right? That is the language that's being spoken. And some of the work that we want to do is really just kind of bridge that gap. Right now, a lot of the music that people are enjoying heavily is Anglophone, right? So the Shakes, the Burnas, the Wizkid are coming out of those Anglophone countries. And my piano's on the rise now, right, where people are listening to more Southern African music. But Francophone music is amazing music, right? Since I was a child, we used to love listening to Mapuka and some of these amazing people that are coming out of Angola, Cote d'Ivoire. So some of the work that we're doing with La Sande, which is a DJ collective out of Cote d'Ivoire, we're collaborating to really just kind of talk to Francophone Africa and figure out some of the joys that they like. A lot of the West African cultures are very similar in the foods that we eat, and the garbs that we wear. Even the materials are around the same type of colorways. But we have so many different tribes in Ghana alone. In Accra, there may be Gas and the Santis and Tweeds. So I'm sure it's pretty much the same across Africa, and really just being able to understand the nuances by collaborating and developing those relationships with our partners across the continent is some of the work that we're doing in Cote d'Ivoire as well.
Okay, and then one other question about Afrochella, Afrofuture. for people who are now going to be rushing to go there.
Yeah.
What's the weather like around that time? How should people dress? Like, just so they know how to pack.
Well,
Because
right now we're all dealing with global warming, and global warming sometimes can affect us in Ghana. But in Ghana, we sit right there on the equator. The weather is warm during the time we're in the dry season. During that December period, a lot of the summertime is when it gets there's a lot of rain and wet. But in 2019, what was it, 2021? It might have been 2021. Last year we did it. Not 2 years ago, we experienced rain in December, which was the first time we had in about 12 years. So,
wow.
It can happen, but it's always warm. Think about summertime. Definitely want to have your nice outfits because people are really coming to show off their drip from all over the world. It's just, come just ready to have a good time. I think it doesn't really matter what you're wearing. I think most people also find tailors on the ground and start creating their own garb. So, you probably could pack light and come and support the local economy as well.
I love it. Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm directing this question to you, Lisa, because Fela Kuti was well known for his political activism in his music. AfroBeats played a part in the recent election in Nigeria when Fields and Davido addressed the lack of reliable power on their song Electricity. Do you see more artists willing to take a stance and address societal issues in their music, including yourself?
I definitely do. My latest single, Yaro, featuring Ziatan, if you've seen the music video, it kind of touches on, the police brutality that was going on in Nigeria. And I kind of got some pushback pertaining to, I don't know if you should really put that in the video. You're still working your way through the industry. And for me, it's a form of expression. If I have a way to express, I will do so. And I think it was very fitting to kind of show, sometimes you'll get pulled over just for being someone that looks like they have money. So, that was going on in Lagos with, mopos and people thinking that you're a Yawo boy. And that's someone that has money from, ways of not being the typical 9 to 5. And it's also kind of translates to what's going on in the States with police brutality. And, our people who have our complexion often get pulled over more times than someone who's not. And, just kind of shedding light and bringing that to the forefront through music. So I think more artists are being brave to speak on it. And, speaking on it can come in different platforms, and some use their words and some use their visuals and some go out on the ground and protest. But we need someone in every single corner to be, a voice. And I think, that's like all moving parts. We all find our lane and our way of expression, and we can move together.
I love that.
It's interesting in this space, if I could, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, please.
In this space here, what we see on continental Africa is, I mentioned earlier, we're in a space as a diaspora in cultural revolution, whereby in the days of Fela Kuti, yes, his records are about every social ill that's happening in that area. The system fought back. They killed his mom. There's a whole story behind all of that, so the forces that he spoke out against did strike back hard. But in this day and time, what we're seeing is, especially in Africa, is the young people are saying, look, the old ways are no more. We can do this now. We're more educated. We can be more, we're more fearless to speak out against it. And you hear this in the music. Look at Mother Africa. Is the average age on the continent is 19 years old. The average age in Ghana is 25. Wow. They're saying in their music, they're speaking against the old ways. Yes, we have independence, but now we want accountability. And this is also happening among the youth here in the United States. And music and art as a tool is that way to do that. When Brother brings all of those people from all over the diaspora to come to his festival and just be imbued in the culture and being proud of who we are. And then now that manifests itself through strong and relevant messages through their music, through their art, thus and so.
That's so true. That's really a great point, Greg. And Abdul, with the events that you're putting together and the festivals, do you think about some of the political activism and ways that you can bring attention to various issues when you're doing your various events as well?
That's a great question. I think we've tried to stay apolitical about stuff because of the position that we're in. But some of the programming that we have as a company, but some of the programming that we have created is has spoken to some of the things that are against. So our first ever activation at the first ever Afrochella was about the Libyan crisis, about how they were trafficking and slaves. So a lot of the artwork is speaking to some of the causes. But as a company, because we are still prone to the powers that be, we have to be mindful about how we operate in that space as well, right? It's still a dual political system. We have a lot of things that we want to do on the continent, so we need to be mindful about how we go about, protesting the system
Right. You
within
gotta
the system.
gotta be very strategic about that, so that the foundation of what you're
Yeah.
doing isn't lost. I totally get that. And Greg and Abdul, with your Long Beach, the Long Beach Arts Council, and the festivals that Abdul does, do you see yourselves, maybe partnering up and bringing something huge to Long Beach or here in California?
I'm gonna need those contact details as soon as we're done.
Yeah, I would love that. I actually love Long Beach. One of my bros lives in Long Beach, right on the beach, and it's actually one of my favorite cities. I would love for us to do
Oh, let's
something. It
get
would
it.
be
I
really,
got
really
it.
cool.
I got the one for us.
Don't worry, I won't charge too much of a
Yeah,
percentage fee.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
Lisa, I just have a question about some of the licensing deals. What are the music licensing deals like in the African market? And as an independent artist, do you have to sign deals with each territory around the world, or is it an overall deal?
So for me, being an independent artist signed to my own label, I do distribution deals. And then I have different avenues pertaining to licensing with the films that I do. I kind of broker my music into the soundtrack and the end credits. The film that I did called Asking For It with Vanessa Hudgens, Ezra Miller, my previous single featuring Mayor Coon is in the soundtrack and in the end credits. I like to keep it as minimal as possible. I have partnered with Not Just Okay, which is a distribution company, but as far as licensing, I don't really go down that avenue, just for me,
Right.
because for the things that I'm currently doing in the future, I will, but there are overall umbrella deals that you can do depending on what label you partner with to do a licensing agreement.
Okay, and do you have?
But I'm independent at the moment.
And
so.
do you have a team, or do you do it all on your own?
It's not even me. It's all through God. I will give God the glory every opportunity that I get. God has made it possible for me to build my team, because when I started in 2018, it was me, and going to Nigeria, going back home, working with Spells, Kublon, different Clem, all these amazing producers, meeting with Don Jazzy, and just getting insight from different people. I've started to, establish relationships, establish friendships, and then seeing people who actually believed in what I'm doing. And they're like, look, I'm willing to work with you. Let's build and see where this takes us. And looking back now, because I'm currently working on my EP, I have a team of over 15 people in Nigeria that are working with me. And I'm just like, wow, that's come a long way from, just me doing this, on my own and building my team here in the States. It's been kind of the same journey, but it's an interesting experience to start and then turn around and see there are other people who actually believe in the mission, believe in what you're doing, and wholeheartedly are putting their time and efforts as if it was something they're doing for themselves.
It's the best feeling to see how you grow a brand.
Yes, I'm actually going back to Nigeria in a week and a half. I'll be out there for 3 weeks. We're shooting some more visuals for my upcoming I'm a Piano single. And then we're doing some more things for the upcoming EP that drops. And then I'm doing a launch party. So if any of you guys are in Nigeria in June, I am inviting you all to the launch party. So come one, come all.
I love that.
But it's been great having,
Nice.
you know, building your army and just seeing that everyone is on the same page and they're passionate about the project at hand, because it's not an I, it's a we thing. And I like to make sure that every single person on the team is aware of that and how grateful that I am, because time is something you can't get back. And I'm very fortunate for every single one of them.
That's great. And Greg, I have one last question for you, because in addition to all the things that you do, in addition to being a broadcaster, you also set up Kalimba Coffee Company with farmers in Cameroon. And I'm just curious, did you get any pushback or skepticism from local African people as an American trying to do business on the continent? Did they understand your intention was to create equitable arrangements for the teams in both countries?
Yeah, no pushback at all. Actually, we are a collective of African Americans who buys from a collective of small lot farmers in the mountains of Cameroon. Our leader is from Cameroon, and his family originates from the region, the Boyo region, or they call it department, the Boyo department in the mountains of Cameroon, in Anglophone Cameroon, by the way. Maddie organized these farmers to be more competitive in the coffee market. All these collectives, and they're small lot farmers. So back in the day, they were, every man for himself, every man and woman for themselves in terms of the coffee. But Maddie is like, okay, you can be stronger and realize more commerce as a collective. And so here on this side, there's about 15 of us. We're bringing in by the ton the coffee. The biggest challenge and pushback is that the nation is in armed conflict. We mentioned earlier the Francophones against the Anglophones. And so basically the northern part of Cameroon was settled by the French, and so they speak French. The southern part is, the English speakers, and they were colonized by the British, and they don't get along, and so there's armed conflict. The president's been in office for, I don't know, dang near 40 years and all this. So we encounter coming out of the mountains, because we're a coffee cartel. Okay, this is the real thing. We're coming out of the mountains on the backs of motorcycles and in the trunks of cars, and the sisters with the big beans on their head, and we're bringing by the ton coffee from these places, and we're encountering not only gangs and criminals, but we're encountering government troops. One quick story I'll leave you with is that we did build a milling station to make it easier for when they came out of the mountains, they could bring the beans right there. We could do the milling. It was a convenient location. But what we didn't know is that the structure was in the middle of a crossfire between opposing forces. So gunfire could break out at any time, and we had to close the facility because folks got hurt. But it's a whole... We call them beans of resistance. So that's the only pushback that we've ever had, is just the internal conflict in the land.
Okay. And one last question for Abdul. What is your ultimate vision as AfroFuture grows, and what's in store? What would be your ideal vision?
Well, my ideal vision would be a platform owned by the diaspora together for us to kind of create content that supports our needs. Right now we're building into a production company that allows us to be able to tell stories around music, maybe create more music, support rising artists that are developing music on the continent, from the continent, and being able to work to kind of get them really good deals and tell stories about them, document stories about some of our musicians, our greats. Tell story about young Africa, as he mentioned. Africa is going to be the youngest continent over the next couple of years. We should experience that, and I think that we need content that is commensurate to the people on the ground, what young Africans are doing, what they're thinking, what is important to them, and we want to be able to be the vehicle to kind of create that continent. And we're also establishing properties as far as like events in other parts of Africa as well. So last year we opened up in South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire. This year we're back at Cote d'Ivoire, as you mentioned earlier, and South Africa at the end of September. but we're also doing some stuff in Nigeria and Kenya as well. And looking forward to just kind of being able to kind of be that that agency on the continent that's working to build out this entertainment scene and working with partners across the continent to do that.
I love that. I love that. Well, we hope you enjoyed and learned something new about AfroBeats to our viewers out there and listeners. If you have, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and make comments, and we'll be sure to answer your comments, questions, and suggestions. And I'd like to thank our guests, Abdul, Karim, Abdullah, Lisa Yaro, and Greg Johnson for enlightening Music Day about the Afrobeats genre. Now, before we go, can each of you share your social media, contact, and website info? Abdul, let's start with you.
Yes. So you can find us online on all platforms at AfroFuture and AfroFuture.com. We're all over socials, so please find us, look for the hashtag, and you'll be able to find us.
And Lisa, can you share your social and website as well as your upcoming single that's coming out and the date that it drops?
Yes, so you guys can find me on social media at Lisa Yaro. You can also find me at lisayaro.com, my website, or you can message me at musiccornerllc@gmail.com or lisayaro@gmail.com. And the upcoming single is I'm a Piano record called Savage. It drops May 26th. BET is going to do the world exclusive premiere when the video drops June 16th. So make sure you check that out, Times Square. So.
Love that. And last but not least, Greg.
Well, I got many platforms, but go ahead and hit me at beachcityradio.com, beachcityradio.com. And that is a portal to get to all of our other platforms. Social medias at Hannibal the Radio, HANNIBALTHA Radio. That's it, at Hannibal the Radio. You'll find me.
That sounds good. Well, this is Music Day, and I'm Monique Kelley. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.
Music Day, a verified hit, real talk with experience. Executive producers are Jacqueline Reinhardt, Pat Shields, Ken Johnson, and Mark Hill. Associate producers Tony Winger, Sheila Eldridge, and Shannon Henderson. Talent booking by Black Dot LLC. Production, Mark Hill Creative and Mean Old Lion Media. I'm your announcer, Jay Johnson. This has been a Living Legends Foundation, Inc. production. Find out more about the Living Legends Foundation, Inc. or donate to livinglegendsfoundation.com.